The debate about how to best fix the homeless problem in San Diego boils down to whether you believe placing homeless people in housing first can be a magic bullet. The executive director of Father Joe's Villages, Ruth Bruland, says she supports housing first, but she says transitional housing is still an important part of the solution.
We are firm believers in Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of human need, so we really work hard to keep our campus safe. So then when that reality of safety pervades somebody that's coming to us from the street, then they're able to focus on those key things that they need to do in order to get income and housing and leave us as quickly as possible.
In most of those programs, you've got 4 people sleeping in a cubicle. I mean, there's no privacy there. There's not a lot of dignity in listening to a dozen other people snore and cough and hack and, wake up in the middle of the night. So I think if we're going to talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it's not shelter, it's really the dignity of a home.
Jennifer Lassar is a housing first advocate who's heading up the campaign to end homelessness in downtown San Diego.
The strategy of Housing First says that whether you're newly homeless or you've been homeless for 30 years, the right solution is to rehouse you immediately in your own home with your own front door key and your own lease, and to restore your human dignity.
Lassar says the idea is that then you can worry about the rest, like addiction and mental health issues. A few blocks from Father Joe's Villages, I meet Matthew Mccarthy. Mccarthy says he's caught in the revolving door of transitional housing. He has a part-time job. He also drinks. He says sleeping at Father Joe's means he not only has to give up drinking, he has to give up some of his income, 30%, with the promise he'll get 60% back if he succeeds in the program.
You have to quit drinking to get the 60%. You give 30% of your paycheck, right? And then after 6 months of proving you're okay, which I'm 45 years old and I'm not okay, so you got to prove for 6 months you're okay, and then you'll get 60% back of the 30% you give in. 95% fail rate. You just do the math. It's not going to happen.
To learn more about the numbers, we meet Michael Mcconnell at his coin shop in La Jolla. His business is selling rare coins, but his off time is spent on the Regional Task Force for Homelessness, calculating the cost of helping the homeless. McConnell is a housing first supporter. He says the problem with transitional housing is that it sets a series of steps people have to successfully pass through, and that creates cracks they can also slip through.
And so every time you take a step, you only take a certain percentage of your population with you. And then by the time you get to permanent housing, of the 100 people who started over here, you may end up with 10 or so who actually exited to permanent housing.
And now the federal government tends to agree with his assessment. Matthew Doherty is with the U.S. Interagency Council on Homelessness.
Through the federal programs, there's been a significant investment into transitional housing, and not through any ill intent or bad will, but really that was the model that was thought to be going to be successful. But increasingly across the country, we're seeing that we're not finding strong outcomes coming out of transitional housing programs.
And the federal government is putting its money where its mouth is by tying grant money to Housing First programs.
So far it's been a carrot, but it's now about to be a stick. And I think the federal direction, again, the federal government's been giving this direction for more than a decade, and I think that the direction is becoming extremely much more forceful.
If you didn't have to quit drinking, but you could get a house, is that something you would do?
A billion yeses? Infinite yeses? How many yeses can I say?